and the ITC team. I hope you can all hear me. My name is Angela Njehia, and I am from Tiaranjani, Africa, and we've been running a series of webinars for the past few weeks, just to able to help us build and make ourselves stronger through the harsh times that tourism industry is facing. Today, our topic is going to be domestic and regional product development. The reason why we're talking about domestic and regional product development is because that we've all been seeing it in the news. We've all seen how people are saying, or rather how the industry leaders, the UNWTOs, they're all saying that when the markets open up, when tourism open up, when the skies open up and people start traveling again, yeah, the first sense of travel will be either domestic or at least regional. But this was, as we know, yeah, this will also take time. So today we'll go through a few thoughts on domestic and regional tourism, as well as how do you develop a product for this type of market. Again, I want to state that, yes, it's not for everyone. However, it is a possible scenario to make us bridge through to the international traveler that we've been used to, because we understand that if we're talking about a possibility of a resurgence, or, you know, like the phase 2 of Corona, yeah, then you need a backup plan. Can we say that? Yeah. However, I've always advocated for intra-Africa travel, because I don't think this should be a backup plan. This should be your sustainable plan, because as we'll see and we look at some figures, that Africa has potential to grow, and Africa has potential to support Africa. And Africa supporting Africa will also contribute to sustainable development. So starting off today, Caroline? Can you hear me? Not sure she's there, but basically I usually like to give a background, yeah? I usually call it like the introduction. When you speak about regional tourism, what are you looking about? If you talk about domestic tourism, what are you looking about? So when you talk about regional or intra-Africa tourism, basically is distinguished by a geographical area, yeah? So basically we're talking about intra-African trade. We're talking about, now, when we say Africa tourism, we're talking about trade between our services, yeah, which is in the tourism sector. And I'd like us to look at a few demographics that were put up last year by a report for the African hospitality by Jumia, because one of the things I also realized is that, and we'll look at it when we're looking at challenges in this domestic and Africa travel, to say, is that we don't have the best data, yeah? So it proves a very big challenge, yeah, in understanding our roots, in understanding our customer, for us to be able to customer profile, but we'll look at that later. So if you look at some of the demographics on African travel, is that African is poised to grow by 1.1 billion. We're currently at around 1.1 billion. This is at 2019. And they're saying the population is expected to reach 2.5 billion. And we are currently at 1.3 to raise to 2.5 B, and the middle class is about 1.1 B. Then, if you're talking about in terms of tourism employment, how much do we contribute? You can see the figures there suggest that tourism contributes a big part of the economic development in Africa. We're basically saying that tourism acts as a catalyst to the wider economic growth and economic integration, but tourism can also be the key factor, and that is why it was in 2017, UN recognized it as the year of sustainable development for tourism, because it has also the greatest potential, yeah, to influence sustainable growth in our region, which is Africa. So then again, you look at this basically just talks about what domestic tourism is. And looking at these figures talk about, they're from the African Hospitality Report, like I said, in 2019. And the cities, they were looking at the number of bed nights in the cities, and this is within the region, yeah? So we're saying which cities were getting a lot of bed nights booked by Jumia, and this was, you could see Lagos, Nigeria, Nairobi, and I want to take Kin in number 3, 4, and 5, because that consists of Kenya and Ghana, and it's you guys, yeah? So that means there was potential. There are people locally buying hotel accommodation within those areas, yeah? And then if you look at also the destination search by regions, you can see domestic tourists are also looking at, you can see the percentage in East Africa, you can see in West Africa. So that means there's an interest, yeah? I want to assume the interest lies within this middle class we are talking about. So it's interesting to see the figures, because, sorry, just a moment, my screen seems to be hanging now. But it's interesting to see how that we perceive that domestic tourism may not be necessarily as busy as the rest. Just a moment. Caroline, can you see my screen? We're having technical hitches.
Hi, Angela, this is Phyllis. I can see your screen.
Okay, Phyllis, are you able to scroll it down as well?
Ooh, okay, you would, let me see. You would have to hand me the host.
It's fine. Can you see it now?
Yes, can see it.
All right. I'm not sure what's happening with Zoom today. Anyway, going back to the demographics. Thanks, Phyllis. Going back to the demographics, yeah, you can see that the highest interest also lies in a certain age group. Yeah. So when you're talking about developing a product, you want to understand the demographics, because these demographics are what guide you in developing a product that meets this client's need. Yeah. So in the past, I know we've used, like, for example, in Kenya, there are certain, and I said this last time, yeah, there are certain tourism circuits that we know. So we join the industry, we become SMEs, entrepreneurs, and you pick up these routes and you start selling these routes, yeah? But basically, the concept we are putting through now is that you can actually use the data we have, even though it's not that much in Africa, and then that data can guide you develop products for this age group. We are saying 35 to 44, you know, 45 to 55, and at 25 to 35, yeah? Because these ones are the ones who have that interest, yeah? Then if you look at the amenities, of course, on Jumia, there's not they wouldn't probably pick a safari guide or what, but if you look at the amenities as well, restaurant, lounge, breakfast, swimming, internet. Restaurant strikes me as number one, because Africa, we are rich for cuisine. We are rich for, you know, food, culture. So it doesn't surprise me that restaurant would actually be one of the amenities they look at, yeah, because they want to know, okay? So then Jumia also looked at mobile penetration, internet connectivity, that interest, what guides these people to come. Of course, if you look at the age groups we are talking about, the millennials, 25, and then you stretch it out till around 45, you can obviously see those figures. Majority use their phones. So that if you're developing a product, and we are talking about reaching and promoting that product, you want to bear in mind, if I'm doing a product on my website, is my website conversant with mobile? or will they not be able to access it with mobile? Yeah. So those are things that you have to consider as you build it. So there's that question of, so what does this person want? Yeah. For me, because for you to create the package, for you to sell into their needs, yeah, you need to obviously understand them. So we took out a simple way, a simple mechanism of understanding what this client would want. So the first step, as you can see on the screen, is you have to ask yourself, what are their needs really? What frustrates this domestic traveler when they go to the Kenyan coast? Yeah, for example, myself, I live in Nairobi. When I go to the coast, what frustrates me? Yeah, that's one of the things that you can actually start from there. Then if you say, okay, her frustration is, for example, the meals. Yeah, when you go to the coast, it's hot. This is now Angela, yeah, the domestic traveler. She goes to the coast. She has her family. She has 2 kids, a 7-year-old and a 2-year-old. Yeah, and she gets there. What's the frustration? Usually, I'll tell you, when you travel with kids below 2 years, it's the meals, because most of the hotels don't consider that you will have small kids. I think at the coast, at the Kenyan coast, there's only one specific hotel that I know they have a special corner in their dining area for kids. And for us, that will always be priority number 1. So long as this kid is below those years, I don't have to keep saying, you need to blend, you need to grill, you need to do what you need to. They already have figured out that, because we are planning to attract families, this is something that we can actually put there. So I want you to think, as a tour operator, what product would you develop to meet my need as a domestic person? So as a domestic traveler, because I am a domestic traveler, then you have to ask yourself, because yourself, you can also travel within your country or your region. What is it that you would generally be looking for? What makes you feel, and you as a tour operator feel, I can actually alleviate this, yeah? It could be, most of us will genuinely go and say, we give personalized service, but everybody gives personalized service, yeah? So then you look at, what is your unique value proposition? Because everybody says, I do custom-made itineraries. Well, everybody nowadays does custom-made itineraries, yeah? So you've got to ask yourself, what is that will add value, yeah? And then, of course, you've got to look at existing alternatives, yeah? If this is what's been going on, what's the alternative, yeah? How are these challenges for the African traveler being solved today? And if they are not being solved, is it something you can actually contribute and solve, yeah? And then, of course, you look at, after you've developed, say you are doing an itinerary that you will be promoting, you have developed, so my trip will move day 1 here, day 2 here, day 3 here, day 4, and in each day we will solve clients' meals because we'll have requested for that. We'll have maybe spoken to the facilities now, because even our hotels, yeah, certain things now will start to change. Because if we're saying within the next 2 to 3 years, the possibility of us getting the international traveler or going back to where we were might be until 2022 or 2023, then it means that you need a way to survive, yeah? So those are, you can also now start engaging your suppliers and saying, guys, come on, I think this is a bit too, can we incorporate possibly African meals? I've seen a lot of 5-star hotels usually don't have African meals in them, yeah? So maybe it is something that we can now incorporate, yeah? Then, of course, after you look at all that, you have to ask yourself, how will I move this product out there? Is it social media? Is it email marketing? Is me making calls to my current database, if I have a database, and then how will you measure? Last week we spoke about pricing, yeah? Then when you look at pricing, like we said last time, you've got to look at your fixed and variable costs and then consider which one is correct. And then because we're talking about sustainable generation, yeah? This is the part I always say, when you're doing your costing, tour operators usually come and say, the challenge that we have is how do I fund my sustainable initiatives? You could add an extra $5, $10 as a traveler's philanthropy and develop a kitty for sustainability as part of your pricing structure. Yeah, so that's when you come to the revenue streams, you'll be able to say, this is my pricing model, this is my pricing strategy, and the sustainable value is that maybe every $5 I collect will go towards a project within the cost that collects the litter by the beach or does something so that there's actually a contribution to, you remember what we were talking about last time? The local communities and the environment, yeah? So you've developed a product that is sustainable conscious, that is also consumer conscious, yeah? So that you're meeting the whole circle of the chain. So when we talk about the domestic and regional buyer, we are talking about, you have to think, what does the customer want? So shortly, we will look at the stages of a new product development. So of course, stage number 1 is idea generation. You have this bright idea. I will do this, I will do that. All these ideas that we come up with when we are giving clients itinerary auctions, even in terms of travel, yeah, we always go out of the way and we say we are selling now accommodation. If I've sold you a ticket, say Nairobi to Mombasa, yeah, then you will come up with something and say an add-on is this hotel, da, 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 da. So when you think of that bulb moment, I usually like to call it, then stage 2 has to be research. Is there any similar product to your big idea? I want to highlight this part of research because one of the things I have seen us do is what you call the copy and paste model. Because tour operator ABC is now offering itineraries to the Mara at 30,000 Kenya shillings, that's $300, then I think I should also do that. Now, remember what we spoke about, the pricing strategy. Are your costs the same as this person? Are the initiatives you're supporting the same? Yeah. And also, when we look at perceptions, yeah, we'll look at misconceptions, perceptions of this type of product we're talking about and this type of customer we're talking about. So it is important for you to research the market so that that when you hit out what you're giving, not other people are giving it. It's not just a copy and paste and then you say, we are working towards our customer service is the great. Everybody believes their customer service is the great, yeah? So you have to think of something that makes you unique, yeah? And then stage 3 of developing this product is that the product you're developing in the market, will it satisfy the travel craving of your customer? Yeah, so you match the product with the market. And then we've just spoken about the market now being the domestic and regional market. Yeah, and then stage number 4 is access in reference to destination. What basically this means is that if you're saying, because you have seen that the domestic travelers in Kenya enjoying going to Dubai, for example, yeah, and you're saying this market that was going to Dubai, I want to tap into that market. So what do they go for? They probably like the desert safari, for example. In Kenya, we have Chalbi Desert. So is there an opportunity that you could tap in there? But as much as that is your bright idea, then you've got to ask yourself, are there amenities to get there? How is the road facilitation? How is, the accommodation facilities? Are there local domestic flights going to that region? So those are things that you have to look at in stage 4. Yeah. Then the next stage is understanding the stakeholder role. Usually when we say stakeholder, we think just maybe government bodies, the associations, but really when we are talking about stakeholder in a product development, I'm saying the local community, yeah? Because I want to believe your product will involve people. Tourism is social, yeah? It will involve people. It will involve an environment, yeah? So have you looked at the impact, yeah, to the local community so that we don't end up developing products that infringe on other people's rights or they make them feel they're not comfortable, yeah? So you have to understand the stakeholder role in it and also make it inclusive, yeah? Make them part of the product because that way you'll get buy-in. We need to remember for the last 10 years or more, we have had this word called experience in tourism. What does that mean? People want to feel that experience. They want to enjoy, to know, as if I go into Ghana and I'm in Accra, what food will I eat? Yeah? What makes me part of that community? What makes me know I can associate with the community? So that means you have to involve the people. If you're looking at safari circuits, you've got the wildlife, you've got, and so those are things that you must look at. Then of course, stage 6 is now you've done your checks, you've done your supplier list, you've understood, okay, these are my people, this is what the customer wants, this is what the product demands, this is the access. Then you build your product. Creativity, innovation, all that comes into play, yeah? Then stage 7 of this new product is that you can have a perfect product, but if you can't move it, at the end of the day, you're in business, right? Excuse me, you're in business. So the key word is you need to make money. It means you need to push this product from the shelves. You need to move it out there. How do you move it out there? Yeah. So how will this market know your product exists? Because they don't know that there's a product that fits their needs. They don't know there's a product that will, that desire to be in the desert will be met. So you need to think of a strategy, a marketing plan, a promotion plan. How will you move it out there? Yeah. So at this point, I usually like to go a bit textbookish, like I say, because this then gives you a working framework of how you will do it, yeah? So I'd like to introduce this concept called the product market fit. And basically, it's what we've been talking about, yeah? It refers to your business being in a good market with the right product that can satisfy the market needs. So the difference between struggling to find, basically this shows the line, yeah? The difference between struggling to find customers and having them knock down your door, yeah? Because like I said, do you remember my copy and paste model, which we have seen very much? That won't get people knocking, yeah? You don't want a product that everybody else is offering. You want a product that is different. So in this scenario, that's why we say you can use this framework, which will identify you to target the customers and their undeserved needs and test, and then change your key market hypothesis to arrive at the product market fit. So the product market fit is the level where you actually have people knocking. We've heard, they're the ones inquiring, we've heard that you're offering this type of package to, this place. We've heard, we want to be part of it, yeah? So how do you go about this product market fit? So number 1 is identify your target customer. At this point, we are saying our target customer is potentially the domestic and regional markets. Then, of course, know their undeserved needs. What needs do they have that are inadequately met? Yeah, you know what we were talking about. What is this that domestic travelers or regional travelers, I as Angela, moving from Nairobi to Accra, what is that that I would want? Yeah, then define your value proposition. Remember what makes you unique, state your MVP feature, then apply user experience principles, yeah, to receive feedback. Once you start having people going out there, remember that doesn't mean your product will remain at the top. It basically just means that it is new and it's like, wow. You know how when Mac, Apple always say there's a new model and everybody rushes to the shops and there's long queues, people waiting for that product. Yeah. So once you get that wow factor and people are there, remember there's somebody else still coming up with something. So you want to get feedback, then you make your product even better. Yeah. Like I said in the beginning of this, when we were looking at those statistics, the challenge of Africa intra-travel, and we've been going through this with my business partner, is that data is a challenge. So one of the things, or rather one of the ideas I would propose is, because we are in Africa ourselves, we've got to start asking ourselves, if I travel, what would I want? Yeah. So like I said, your product, you've developed a product, people are now knocking because of the framework that we're using. Next is understanding the stages of a product. Because one thing is that a product will hit the shelves, everybody will want it, you'll be the number one, then somebody somewhere will come up with something better and they go. So you need to understand every time when you're selling this product or you're moving it out there, at what stage is it? And at what stage do you need to do something? So basically there are 6 stages on a life cycle of a product, yeah? Number 1, development. Number 2, introduction. Number 3, growth. Number 4, maturity. 5, saturation. And 6 is decline. And now the reason why from decline we move to development is because, like you'll see, yeah, development is now where we are now. We're excited. So things have been bad. We understand it could be getting worse. Tourism could take longer to open up, travel routes. But I can still tap into this small market and do it. Yeah. So that's stage 1, development. Then introduction is when you launch the product. I have this new route and I think this is what it will do. It considers the local host, it considers the environment. There's so much about it. Then stage 3 is growth. Remember when we were talking about people knocking down your door for that product, you're not the one now going to say, hey, we have this new tourism route or tourism circuit or whatever you want to call it, yeah? That stage is growth, then maturity. Then saturation. People have tested that product. Now it's just there, you know, it's just there. Saturation point is that you've just reached the limit, yeah? So during the product saturation stage, competitors have begun to take a portion of the market and products, because there's that copy and paste model, yeah? We've seen ABC get so many vehicles and people moving, they have very good clientele. Now it's time for us to do it. Now agent XYZ does the same. So the product is no longer, doesn't have that boom kind of thing, yeah? Then the last stage is decline, yeah? Your product is no longer the best. It's not a unique experience anymore. People have enjoyed it. So you remember when I was talking about the product market fit and I spoke about getting feedback to improve your product. So when you get to this stage, you want to make sure you're able to actually revamp your product, yeah? Take the feedback, see what you can do to make it better so that people don't get bored of the experience, okay? So then again, you've got to ask yourself, we are now talking about domestic and intra-Africa travel, and we are saying that this could be our norm. You know how everybody keeps talking about the new normal? So our new normal in the African market, we're used to getting numbers that show us the international traveler, showing us how many, you know, our source markets, which are our top source markets. Like in Kenya, I think Europe, the US, I think Ghana as well, especially with your unique routes. So what is our challenge? What is the challenge for Angela going to tour across Ghana? Yeah, what is the challenge there? So one of the things is that airline connectivity. I think we've all seen that. Then with airline connectivity, in fact, it connects with number 4, high cost of flights. Yeah, the costs. There's a time I was doing a comparison of going to Morocco, and it was cheaper for me to go to Dubai and then come back. Yeah, as opposed to moving through the routing within Africa. And there was also another route which, if I would have gone to Europe into Casablanca, it would have been cheaper. So I would need to leave Africa to come back to Africa for me to enjoy a cheaper rate of flying. That's ridiculous. Yeah, but it's travel, it's the logistics, it's what we have. And it's one of the challenges as you promote intra-Africa travel. But there's hope, of course, because now that we look at our travel, the regional travel within Africa, we can see governments, we can see the airline industry talking. They're talking and they're saying, if our new normal is the domestic and regional, then we need to do something. So I think that's a win out of the negative situation basically that we've had with Corona, because now we are talking and we are saying, how do we start sustain ourselves? Yeah, how do we tap into that 1.1 billion by 2050 to give us steady markets? Yeah. So of course, the second one I said, even just to put up this conversation, data, demographics about the African travel market for Africans by Africans. That's a challenge. Yeah, we need to get data. We need to look at ways we can engage BSOs or maybe our local leadership on how do we collect data? How do we collect data for the domestic traveler and for this regional intra-Africa traveler we are talking about? Because then this data will be used to help us develop better products that actually meet the needs of this client. Yeah. And then of course, the very, very famous one is visa openness. Yeah. As of 2018, some African countries reduced or rather made their visas a bit flexy. I know in East Africa, one of the biggest wins is that you can travel between Uganda and Rwanda and Kenya without using a passport, and that's a win. Yeah, I just need my national ID and I can move within the 3 countries. Yeah, so if I can do that, then that's okay. So can you imagine if the rest of Africa would be like that? Wouldn't there be more people moving around? Wouldn't it be easier for these numbers that we've been given to move around? Yeah. So those are some of the things that we can accredit to the challenges that we will have in this new normal of ours. And then of course, there's advantages. Number 1 is that now we know this is a ready market post-COVID. When the airlines open up, people will find it easier to travel to destinations they can drive to. That means you'll see the domestic traveler moving more. They want to go to places closer to home. That means if I'm considering flying out, I'll probably go to areas within maybe East Africa and move across Africa. So that means at least there's hope at the end of the light. Of course, then number 2 of the advantages is stability. Now let's be real and let's look at the Kenyan situation. Over the years, we've had challenges, yeah? We've had moving from political challenges, then you move into terrorist attacks, you know, security or safety concerns, let me put it that way. And then now we've moved to Corona, yeah? So those are three different crises that we've had. But within the two, you wouldn't find travelers coming from Rwanda or Uganda. The countries, the leadership there giving travel is very rare. Let me put it this way. It's very rare for you to find the Rwandese government giving a travel ban to Kenya. Yeah. So whereas if there was a terrorist attack and your source market was the UK, for example, and they give a travel ban, that impacts your tourists. Yeah. So there's also stability in the domestic and the intra-Africa travel. Maybe because it's our home, maybe. Maybe it's because if I'm told there's war in Nairobi because there's an attack, I will know it's just one specific area. Maybe it's, I think that thing of because we are here, we understand it. So it's easier for me to move into an African travel. So that means as a tour operator, there's a bit more of stability in this market. Then another thing, it's of course easier to convince, like we said about safety concerns, Then domestic, there's no visa restrictions, yeah? If you can tap into the domestic market, then it means that they can easily move around. Then intra-Africa, like I said earlier, is a catalyst to wider economic growth and economic integration of Africa. And then also it can contribute to sustainable development of Africa because tourism, as we know, taps into other economic sectors, yeah? So if you're looking at trying to achieve even the SDGs in terms of African context, tourism is a sector that we can use to uplift all the other sectors. So those are some of the advantages. So when we talk about, I want to go back here because I've spoken about advantages and I've remembered one very important point. Number 5, misconceptions. I find one of the challenges we have in Africa, having that I was a tour operator for 12 years plus, yeah? One of the biggest challenges that we have with the domestic and regional markets is the misconceptions, yeah? I remember when I was trying to penetrate into the Nigerian market, one of the things I would get from my tourism peers is, will they buy, yeah? Or if I say we are now going to do domestic promotions over Easter, and they'll be like, yeah, but you know, they'll yield not so much, yeah? But this is what I can say. These are misconceptions because I have sold, I have had opportunities where I have sold as a tour operator. I have sold high-end trips, and I'm talking high-end locations, safari routes, yeah? Which generally people assume that maybe the African buyer will not want that, yeah? But there's a new, and I kept on saying, taking this example of the Nigerians. I have seen Nigerians go to London to buy their clothes, to do shopping. We've seen them go to Dubai. How much money do you think they're spending? Now imagine if you, cleaned off that misconception and said, I'm starting on a blank slate and I will actually tap into this market. These guys who are going to buy things in London, shopping and come back, yeah? So it's misconceptions that I wanted to say, or the idea that because you're a domestic traveler, because Angela is a domestic traveler, she'll want something that is cheap, yeah? That's not necessarily the case because we've been speaking about communicating value of your product, and now we are saying it's going beyond just the value, but also what are you solving for that client, yeah? So once we solve this, then we'll be able to get rid of these misconceptions of what the domestic and regional traveler looks like, as well as when we start getting the data and we start seeing that you can actually have domestic travelers who are high-end spenders, yeah? It may be a little market, but it's there, yeah? And if you go out to this market with the right product, then they'll knock your door, okay? So a few words of wisdom, or a few words that we thought are interesting to just take as your take homes. Number one is developing a tourism product means creating value for everyone involved and also an avenue for responsible consumption and production, which is usually my favorite SDG, number 12. Yeah. So if you develop a tourism product that is considerate of what we were talking about when you're meeting the needs of your desired client, yeah, you've got to consider that SDG number 12. Then number 2, consumer is a very important stakeholder in the tourism system. Obviously, because now we've said you're doing that product market fit concept that I introduced. And this means that the consumer, you're actually working through, instead of developing how we used to do, this is the route. In Kenya, we can say, we'll start overnight in Nairobi, move to a lake, move to a safari, then move to the beach. You're now basically saying you're taking what they need, then you're doing it in the reverse, yeah? So you're not actually starting with the product, you're actually starting with the customer's needs. Then of course, know your values as well as the consumer values. You remember when we spoke about how does your product contribute to growth, sustainable growth, yeah? What impact is there? So as much as you're making money, there's the economic factor, there's also other wins. Then a unique product requires creativity, innovation, as well as a thought process. Yeah, it's not guesswork. You have to actually have a strategy, a framework of how this is what this product attains to get. Yeah, and you can list. And if people ask, why are you now selling this type of product? Why are you developing a certain itinerary? I've seen you pushing this. You actually have thought out, you've done the whole process. Yeah, and understanding what is it you'll be doing. And of course, that feeds into number 5, which says focus on a specific market. Yeah, and we are saying our focus right now, potentially, like I say again, it could be not for everyone, but potentially the domestic and regional market could help you cross over to where we were in 2019, because we're being told it will take what, 2 to 3 years? So if we're in 2020 now, we're looking at recovery of going back in 2023. Yeah. So there's all those things to weigh out. Yeah. So number six, seek customer feedback to escape the product cycle number 6. If you remember what was in product cycle number 6, that was the decline. So I insist again, customer feedback is very important. We see customer feedback in terms of people rating us on TripAdvisor, rating us on Safari bookings, which is good for search engines. However, what is the greater good of getting that feedback is how you make your product better. Yeah, you cannot have the product that you had 10 years ago and it's the product you're pushing now to the demographics we saw. The 25-year-old, the 30-year-old, and that is a product you're pushing to them. What was there 10 years ago? To them, that will not resonate. Yeah, it will not meet their needs. And that is how you have seen online platforms that sell local experiences or that sell adventure holidays, capture these people. And because that will make their heart beat, they've understood that this is our target focus. This is the market we are focusing on. So if it is adventure and we actually draw out this plan, the thought out process, yeah, and get feedback, then you'll keep revamping, making your product better. And number 7, copy and paste just doesn't work. Yeah, we've already established that number 1, we don't have the very best of demographics in domestic and regional travel. So what works for for tour operator A necessarily won't work for tour operator B. Yeah, so that's why I started by saying we have to start from somewhere. Yeah, and the little demographics that we have, then this creates an opportunity for us to use that and move it further and wider. Yeah, you've got to start somewhere, and the opportunity going back to these advantages, the opportunity that this comes with, you know how they say a threat is an opportunity turned the other way around? Then this is an opportunity for us to actually restart and relook at the domestic and intra-African market and see how we can actually expand this market share. Yeah, this market that we never looked at. Yeah, how can we make it work for us? And so that by the time we're going back to attracting more of those international travelers or across the globe travelers or whatever we want to call them, then we've already stabilized, yeah, our tour operations. Yeah, so I leave it there and I send it over back to Phyllis and Caroline.
Thank you so much, Angela, for going through the important stages of intra-Africa travel and also creating a domestic product. So I'm opening up the webinar now for questions. For those whose microphones are working, please feel free to unmute and ask your questions. For those whose microphones are not working, you can type on the chat option and we can read out and answer your questions as follows. So over to you, participants.
Hi, it's Karen.
Hi.
Okay. Thank you, Angela, again. Great information. But when can you communicate to? Because let's say, let me put it in Ghana. Now the borders have been opened for domestic travel. I found out from the airline that only 50% capacity is allowed. But even with that, in a week, they don't even make, I think, was it 34 seats? So it's actually now growing. And we can't say until the end of the month, flights would increase or the number of travelers will increase, because we tend to realize that the flow comes from people going for funerals and other things, companies traveling within. So when can you, with that number, reduction in number of travelers, and I'm looking at, okay, fine, now we're talking about COVID. People are looking at health conscious, you know, and let me try and dwell into adventure tourism. You get me? How can I, when do you think I can start communicating to the public that, oh, okay, this is a package we have now. The lowest cost of package available now. When can I communicate? Because even if traveling now is very low, people are looking at so many factors as income, disposable. When can you communicate, and how, and when do you, what targets do you think you would even attain after going through advertising, through all the medias, even if it's even hard copy? When do you think, when positive communication effective? Did you get me? Did you get me? I'm sorry for all of this. Did you get me?
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
Okay.
Okay.
Sorry,
so
I'm in between the kids' school and then talking to you, so it's, yeah. Sorry
it's
about
understandable.
that. Okay.
Okay. So one of the things is this. Yeah, the situation remains fluid. Nobody can give a date as to when everything will start moving. Yeah, and then you remember when I spoke about the stages of building your product, and there was a stage that we were asking about access. Access will also now mean, because we're in the COVID time, it will mean that healthy safety is part of the access. You know, before we used to look at access as roads only or airline connectivity. Now we are saying that this access, part of the amenities is that health safety. Does this place meet the health safety? So we can't exactly say this is when. I cannot give you a when. I don't think even WHO can give us a when, yeah, because we're already talking about a possible phase 2. The other day they said COVID could be the new normal. It's here to stay, yeah. So bearing that in mind, it means that all our supply chain, yeah, when we talk about sustainability, inclusivity, we always talk about the supply chain. So one of the checks that we will now see become the new normal, or rather we have started to see, is that there's this new health safety that they must meet, yeah? Then you ask, when will you start to communicate? When we did the first webinar, we spoke about communication and we said, you should not be quiet now. Because just because people are not traveling doesn't mean they're not listening. And just because you're quiet, it also means communicate something to them. Because once people are told, yes, there's healthy safety, people have passed, things are opening up, who do you think these guys will remember? The person who was quiet or the person who made something? I've seen there's a tour operator, Kenyan one that I saw that actually they tagged me in it and they did a message of we will still be here, and they actually sell transport. Their main core is transport. And this was to their supply chain, yeah? So that means that the supply chain, the rest of the tour operators that they provide the transport to will have them in mind regardless what is happening now, yeah? So to bring it to your context, you can be communicating something now because also your package will also be dependent on your supply chain. And that's why I've always said working with the supply chain is very important right now because they're also struggling to actually get to that fit. The other day I had one of the airlines say the configuration of the aircraft, yeah, that's going to take time, yeah? So we've got to be patient. Whether we like it or not, we just have to be patient with the situation. Caroline?
Thank you so much, Angela. So I can see there's also another question. First, has your question been answered okay, or do you have another follow-up question for what Angela said? Okay, so I can see another question from Francisca. She's asking, do you believe that the African market will have the purchasing power since most of it has because most of it has been reduced, the income has been reduced?
Hi, Francesca. Very good question, yeah? But I can tell you this for a fact. Even before COVID, we already used to doubt. You remember the misconceptions. Will these Africans really purchase? Yeah, that's usually the question. And I can read that into your question. But genuinely, I do believe that they will be able, because you also need to remember, as much as people are having the reduced incomes, do you know that right now there are also people who are making a lot more? Think of how in trade, we always used to import face masks. But now we've seen industries come up with face masks. So as much as we tourism are struggling, there's actually other people who are making money. Yeah, you remember the threat is usually an opportunity on the other side. So it's a strange world, but that's the economics, that's the dynamics, that there's always going to be people who can spend. We are not all going to be the same. Yeah, so the thing is just getting yourself ready. How do you get yourself ready for that when? Yeah, that our friend from Ghana was asking just now. How do you get yourself ready for that when? Yeah, as opposed to doubting, will they really? You'd rather say, I tried, so that by the time you're finishing that cycle we were talking about, you know how to revamp your product to meet even the greater number that will have now better or increased income streams. Caroline?
Thank you, Angela. And I can see also another question from Jennifer. first she made a statement that Westerners are more frequent holiday makers. So her question is, in Kenya, holiday makers are very few compared to the number of tour operators. Do you think we will all fit in and make a living?
Hi, Jennifer. So to try and answer your question, do I think we will all fit and make a living? How unique is your product? Because if your product is extremely unique and meets the needs of these Kenyan holiday makers, then can you see the dollar sign? I would encourage you to see it. And that's why we keep saying you always have to think of your unique proposition. What are you giving that everybody else is not giving? Yeah. And if you look at even the Western market, at least above 50% of the tour operators that we have in the Kenyan industry sell the same itineraries, the same circuits. Yeah. And the very few, I can tell you, the very few who offer unique products and have like they specified and they've said, this is my exact target market. I can tell you there are people who actually are not sailing in this boat of we are struggling, how do we keep our employees, how do we, because they actually had a plan and they've been reaping so much more out of it. So the question really should be not even the number of tour operators versus the number of Kenya holiday makers. It should be, how do I entice, make a product that is so unique that it will actually reach out to those people who have never traveled. Yeah, you will make me think, okay, maybe it is time to travel. So how do you do that? Number one is developing a product that is not a copy and paste model. It has to be different. That is the only way you'll make yourself different from this number of tour operators that we are talking about. Caroline?
Thank you, Angela. There's also another question from Nimrod. It's regarding the demographics you had shown in the PowerPoint. So he's asking how many clients bought from the tour operators compared to purchasing or organizing the tours by themselves.
The demographics I shared are from the report of Jumia Hospitality. That means it's specific to bed nights. But when you look at the tour operator versus the ones who organize for themselves, I'll ask a question. Why do you think majority of the travelers, especially the domestic market, and I want to speak for Kenya, for example, prefer purchasing on the online, the OTAs, as opposed to the tour operators? You remember when we were talking about misconceptions, yeah? We also need to realize that the tourism industry in Africa has for the longest time focused on source markets that are from Europe, from the US, from, we never gave much consideration to the domestic traveler. And this is something that has been in the past, and we don't want it to continue in the future. So one of the things that tour operators need to do, Nimrod, is possibly develop products that, because it is unique, the way we were talking about the unique selling point, this is a product that somebody seated in there will not go to the direct hotel and get it. What am I talking about? I've always said it's the little details that make your itinerary unique. For example, if I'm doing a 2-night safari package, and these people, it's a family, take my family, for example, and you say, I've got a family and I have 2 kids. What would I be looking for in a safari package? Yeah, you'll give me the usual road transport, then you give me a tour driver, you give me accommodation, but you can actually custom make so that you speak to the lodge there and you say, can you offer her kids some activities? Yeah, and this is not maybe the usual. One thing I've found is that when you speak to the facilities, when you speak to your suppliers, there's always something little extra they can do. Yeah, so if you say my focus is on domestic market, and the domestic market, I want to go for honeymooners, and because I'm going for honeymooners, what can I give that the rest don't give? We all know if you're a honeymooner, you'll be given a bottle of champagne, you'll be given, you'll find some roses thrown on your bed. Those are the usual things that we see. But you as a tour operator, what added value can you give to this couple that will make them think, yeah, this guy is giving us this, but these ones are not, yeah? Because we need to now, even to operators, it's a mindset, like we were discussing earlier with my colleagues earlier this week. It's a mindset, and it's a two-way mindset. We've sold out tourism to look like it's that product for the Westerners, like Jennifer would call them, yeah? But we've never sold it out as a product for Africa by Africans, yeah? So basically what we're saying is that we need to shift our thinking into that line for us to even develop a product that attracts that market. We're now basically saying, you know, the example I said about Kenya also having a desert, and somebody got me thinking, we have so many Kenyans who go to Dubai, yeah? And they probably buy the packages online and go. But if there's an interest in the desert, what can I create as a tour operator in this desert that will make them not take their money there, but bring their money to me? So bottom line is I want to have these customers knocking at my door, yeah? So, hey, it could work, it could not. Over to you, Caroline.
Thank you so much, Angela. I see 2 more questions, and then probably we can end the webinar, and anyone who else has questions, we can open it up via email and then answer it during an FAQ document. So one is from Hannah. She's asking, without proper database, what would you suggest is the best way of marketing the package to African travelers?
I think number one is that because we are African ourselves, you've got to start asking yourself, who's going to be you can even line it with the current international travelers that you've been dealing with, yeah? The Westerners. Say, for example, your focus has been on families. Then you develop and ask yourself, what does an African family want, yeah? So you can use the little that you have now. You can look at the data. I don't know how well you keep your database, but you can also see the little domestic travel that you had. Where were these people going? The little regional travel that you had, yeah? Even if it is 2% of your past booking, where were they going? So if they were supposedly going to a specific destination, how can you make that, you know, how can you uplift that product, yeah, so that you attract them? So I think that's the advantage that you have, yeah? You're not developing something for people you don't know. You're developing it, again, like I said, for Africans by Africans. Caroline?
Thank you, Angela. I'm just reading a few comments from Monica and also Francesca about especially regarding, for Monica, she mentions that hotel rates are cheaper online than they are from small tour operators. And once the client reaches the hotel takes all the contact details from the clients and then will contact them directly again with lower rates than what the tour operators gives them. So this is one challenge she has raised. I don't know if you have anything to comment on that. And I'll quickly read Francesca's after, if you have anything to add.
Okay. Hi, Monica. One of the, very true, yeah, online will be cheaper than what they give the small tour operators. I have experienced that myself because I've been a tour operator. But one thing I have always seen, especially with the travel agents, and maybe the travel agents here can actually attest to it. You see how travel agents come together under a franchise and they actually have bargaining power. Just a suggestion, you guys have the bargaining power of being members, or you belong to this group of women, you know, women-owned businesses under the She Trades platform in Kenya. Have you thought of coming together and saying, can we consolidate and actually request for this group as ourselves for a cheaper rate? so that you're not bargaining just as Monica. Yeah, you're saying we have 10 others. And I think that approach usually works. Yeah, because we are focused, we have one focus, where our plan, we are women owned, you know, so there's something that draws you together. Because with the travel agents, I've seen them pull together and actually approach airlines for better deals. Yeah, so why can't it work for tour operators? That's the thing I've always said. We just now need to work together. Yeah, find a platform that we can say, can we all consolidate and we actually move forward? Yeah, so that if we are small SMEs who are women, this is what we classify ourselves at. We belong to this umbrella of she trades. We are saying, can we be enjoying? It's an approach that we could try. Yeah, Caroline?
Thank you so much, Angela. You've also answered Francisca's question regarding if accommodation providers could offer domestic operators competitive rates. And then last one, and then we end the webinar. It's from, oh, I see two. I'll read, Barbara's is quite long, so I'll read that last. So Nikos is asking, his question is towards the demographics you shared in regards to the occupancy around 8 to 9% as compared to Nigeria and Ghana. So he's asking, what are we doing wrong and what can we improve?
That's an interesting one, yeah? But we would have to find out from the clients, the ones who were responding to the survey, what you're doing wrong. But I don't think necessarily is anything you're doing wrong, yeah? Look at it on the flip side, yeah? This gives you an opportunity to start all over afresh in terms of domestic and regional travelers, yeah? It gives you a platform to rebuild your product. If we were talking about the safety, how do you engage your suppliers into safety? Yeah, making it a concern. Yeah, so I think there's really nothing you're doing wrong. It's probably you just need to re-strategize. You probably need to rethink how you're doing it and also review. Feedback is very important. You need to review and see, how can we make our product, how can we elevate what we are offering to the next level? And actually, how can we push it, give it a push, especially now that we know there's a white page that needs to be written. How can we rewrite the story? Caroline?
Thank you so much, Angela. I'm gonna just read the comment from Barbara because she makes very good points about using consumer studies, market research publications, working with universities to have students do specific research for specific data on destinations, for instance, on entry fees or attractions or sites. So this kind of data that would be helpful for you. There are other stakeholders who can provide you this information, and you don't necessarily have to concentrate all your efforts, for example, on getting feedback directly from your clients. So there's different ways that you can build up your database. So yeah, I think we're good to go. If anyone has any other questions, please send me an email and then we can put them in an FAQ document. As mentioned before, we're going to share with you the presentation slides and the recording, the exercise for last week's webinar on pricing your products and services. So if you have any questions or need any support, please email me and Angela and we'll be able to help you. So thank you everyone for your time. We're really, really grateful and we wish you a great weekend ahead and also for next week too.